Have you ever stopped to think about what it means to be weak? Not in a physical sense, but on a deeper, psychological level. Is weakness merely an innocent trait, something that evokes compassion, or does it hide something darker, an invisible force that sabotages confidence, happiness, and even truth? For Friedrich Nietzsche, weakness is not just a limitation. It is a silent danger, a state that turns people into prisoners of themselves. He saw weakness as a form of self-deception, a choice to escape rather than confront life. But this weakness does not reveal itself openly. On the contrary, it wears masks. Masks of humility, of excessive kindness, of victimhood. Imagine a friend who always appears kind, but whose help is never truly genuine, or someone who constantly plays the victim to manipulate others instead of facing their own challenges. To Nietzsche, this kind of behavior is not just dishonest, it is corrosive. The problem, according to the philosopher, is that weakness is not confined to the individual. It spreads, contaminating entire societies and redefining what is considered morally right. The weak have more power than they realize, for they control the strong through guilt, he would argue. Over time, the values of the strong have been systematically demonized, while weakness has been turned into a virtue. But where did this idea come from? How did we reach the point where suffering is valued more than overcoming adversity? Nietzsche believed it all began when humanity, unable to cope with its own insignificance in the face of the world, created narratives to justify its powerlessness. These narratives gave rise to moral systems that exalt obedience, humility, and submission while condemning strength, ambition, and self-sufficiency. Christianity, for example, was one of the philosopher's main targets. To him, the command to love your neighbor as yourself was nothing more than a tactic used by the weak to keep the strong under control. But there is an even greater problem. Weakness disguises itself as morality, but it is never satisfied with that. It envies strength. The weak envy those who rise, those who carve their own path, but unable to admit this envy, they transform it into resentment. Instead of trying to become strong, the weak prefer to bring down the strong. They distort reality and create a new morality in which weakness is exalted, while strength is seen as arrogance, evil, or even sin. Those who cannot rise hate those who fly, wrote Nietzsche. But this inversion of values comes at a price. Weakness spreads like a disease, and when it becomes dominant, it destroys entire societies. Think of a workplace where no one can shine too brightly because any display of talent is seen as a threat. Think of a culture where mediocrity is encouraged, and those who seek greatness are labeled as selfish or greedy. For Nietzsche, this is no coincidence. It is the result of institutionalized weakness, of a mindset that fears excellence because it exposes the limitations of others. But are we doomed to this? Will weakness always triumph over strength? For Nietzsche, the answer is no. The first step to escaping this trap is to recognize the truth. Weakness is not an inevitable fate, but a choice. Weakness begins when we accept comforting lies instead of harsh reality. When we convince ourselves that failure is always the fault of the world, of society, of fate, and never our own. When we choose victimhood over overcoming adversity. But there is a way out. For Nietzsche, become who you are means exactly this. Embrace the truth, abandon illusions, and take full responsibility for your own life. And that is the difference between the strong and the weak. The weak live by excuses, while the strong live by overcoming obstacles. The weak hide from the truth, while the strong face it head on. The weak take comfort in the morality of submission, while the strong create their own values. In the end, the choice is in each of our hands. Now, the big question: how does this weakness manifest in the morality and values we follow without question? How has resentment become the ultimate weapon of the weak against the strong? Nietzsche has an answer to this, and it may be more brutal than we imagine. Imagine someone who, instead of striving to improve their own life, spends their days criticizing the success of others. Every time they see someone achieve something great, they react with disdain, saying that person was just lucky, must have cheated, or is, deep down, morally inferior. This attitude is more common than it seems. And for Nietzsche, this feeling has a name: resentment. Resentment is not just a fleeting emotion. It is a defense mechanism of the weak against the strong. When a person realizes they cannot surpass someone, instead of trying to grow, they distort reality to feel superior. The resentful do not seek to evolve. They seek to tear down those above them. Nietzsche believed that this resentment had been institutionalized throughout history. He argued that, at some point, the weak realized they could not defeat the strong by brute force. So they created a value system that favored them. Instead of strength, courage, and authenticity, they began to exalt humility, submission, and suffering as virtues. This system became known as slave morality. The weak have always wanted goodness because they are weak. The wounded fox is the one that wishes to die in peace. This moral inversion is what allowed the weak to dominate the strong. Take Christianity, for example. Nietzsche saw this religion as the pinnacle of slave morality, as it turned qualities like pride and ambition into sins while glorifying poverty and obedience. He claimed that Jesus was the revenge of the weak against the strong, as his core message was that the last would be first and the powerful would ultimately be condemned. Nietzsche did not hate the weak for being weak. What he despised was the fact that instead of confronting their limitations, they masked their weakness with morality. It was easier to condemn greatness than to pursue it. Think of someone who envies wealth, but instead of working hard to earn their own, claims that all rich people are corrupt. Or the one who criticizes elite athletes, saying their success is due only to privilege while ignoring years of grueling training. This is the essence of resentment, to destroy what one cannot attain. But Nietzsche went even further. He realized that this resentment doesn't just affect individuals, it shapes entire cultures. When a society adopts the morality of the weak, it begins to stifle the potential of individuals. Talent becomes a threat, ambition is viewed with suspicion, and mediocrity becomes the acceptable standard. Man would rather will nothingness than not will at all. This explains why many civilizations fall into decline. They stop valuing strength and start glorifying submission. Excellence is punished, while conformity is rewarded. For Nietzsche, this was a symptom of a sick world, a world where people are afraid to truly live. But there is a way out. The first step to breaking free from the morality of the weak is recognizing that nothing prevents us from being strong except our own illusions. Nietzsche proposes a new model of morality, a morality of the strong, of the creators, of those unafraid to live by their own rules. Those who are strong in spirit do not need morality to tell them what is right and wrong. They just know. But this idea raises a question. If strength is the path to freedom, what does it truly mean to be strong? Is strength merely brutality, or is there another kind of power, one that is deeper and more transformative? Nietzsche believed that being strong has nothing to do with crushing others, but with the courage to face reality without masks. What does it mean to be strong? In the traditional view, strength is synonymous with brutality. A strong man is one who dominates, who imposes his will on others. But Nietzsche saw strength in a very different way. To him, being strong is not about subjugating others, but about creating. It's not about crushing people, but about not allowing oneself to be crushed by life. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. True strength, according to Nietzsche, does not lie in muscles, authority, or money. It lies in the ability to face reality without illusions. The weak hide behind masks. The mask of morality, the mask of resentment, the mask of victimhood. They blame others, they blame the world, they blame society. They refuse to accept that life is harsh and that it is up to them to face it. The strong, on the other hand, do not deceive themselves. They look at reality and confront it head on. If they fail, they own it. If they suffer, they do not seek pity. They don't need justifications, excuses, or approval. They are self-sufficient. But how can one develop this strength? Nietzsche believed that strength begins with the radical acceptance of life. In a world where everyone tries to avoid suffering, the strong do the opposite. They embrace pain, chaos, and challenge. This concept has a name, amor fati, the love of fate. My formula for human greatness is amor fati, to want nothing to be different, not in the past, not in the future, not for all eternity. Not only to bear what is necessary, but to love it. Accepting fate does not mean resignation. It means using everything, even pain, as fuel for growth. The strong are those who turn tragedies into lessons, failures into motivation. For Nietzsche, there are no excuses for weakness. The greatest enemy of strength is the victim mentality. In the modern world, more and more people take pride in their fragility. They compete to see who has suffered the most, who has been the most wronged, who deserves the most compassion. Nietzsche would see this as a clear symptom of slave morality, a form of emotional manipulation that rewards weakness and punishes strength. But there is a cost to this. When someone chooses to be weak, they lose the respect of others and of themselves. Nietzsche believed that true strength attracts admiration, while weakness, disguised as humility, breeds contempt. It is not a lack of love that makes relationships fail, but a lack of respect. The strong do not seek to be loved, they seek to be respected. And that respect comes from the alignment between who they are and how they act. Think of historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Nietzsche, Steve Jobs, or even Gandhi. What did these people have in common? It wasn't violence or domination, it was unwavering determination. Each of them faced extreme hardships, rejection, poverty, imprisonment, but they never gave in to weakness. They never played the victim. They created, challenged, and lived with authenticity. Nietzsche believed this was the only worthy way to live. The strong do not follow the herd. They create their own values. They do not ask for permission to exist. They assert themselves regardless of others' approval. But this raises an important question. How can we apply this philosophy in today's world, in a society that values superficiality, distractions, and mediocrity? Is it possible to live with this inner strength? What does it mean to live authentically? For Nietzsche, being authentic is not just being who you are in a naive way. It is an act of courage because it requires destroying illusions, rejecting comfortable lies, and facing life without masks. Most people don't do this. They go with the flow, adopt values that are not their own, repeat ready-made phrases, and conform to what society expects. But Nietzsche saw this as a waste of life. The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Mediocrity, according to him, is not just a state of incompetence. It is a choice. The choice to prioritize security over greatness. The choice to be just another member of the herd instead of creating your own values. The choice to blame the world instead of transforming your own reality. But how can one escape this fate? Nietzsche proposes an attitude called becoming who you are. This means constantly reinventing yourself instead of accepting a fixed and limited identity. It doesn't matter where you come from, how you were raised, or what difficulties you have faced. You are not a label nor a product of chance. You have the power to create a new path, forge a new identity, and live by your own rules. Become who you are. But this doesn't happen without struggle. Nietzsche believed that living authentically means abandoning certainties, questioning everything, and challenging even your own mind. The greatest obstacle to an authentic life is not the external world, it is you. It is the excuses you create, the distractions you accept, and the fears you nurture. The weak seek validation, the strong seek evolution. The weak crave comfort, the strong embrace challenge. The weak run from suffering, the strong transform it into growth. And this leads us to the deepest concept in Nietzsche's philosophy. The Übermensch. The Übermensch is not someone who dominates others. He is someone who surpasses himself at every moment. He does not seek approval, does not hide behind easy moralities, and does not follow the safest path. He creates his own meaning for life. But in today's world, this is an even greater challenge. We live surrounded by distractions, by people who encourage us to be weak, by social media that teaches us to seek external validation instead of internal respect. Nietzsche would warn us, this is the new slave morality. The culture of mediocrity disguised as inclusion, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. True freedom does not come from the acceptance of others. It comes from within. It comes from the courage to live according to your own nature, even if it means being misunderstood, rejected, or even hated. The question Nietzsche leaves us with is simple. Are we ready for this challenge? Are we ready to let go of excuses, fears, and illusions that keep us trapped? Or will we continue following the herd, complaining about life, envying the strong, and hiding behind the morality of the weak? The answer lies within each of us. Because in the end, Nietzsche teaches us a brutal truth. Be strong or be nothing. Nietzsche challenged us to look at life with brutal honesty. He showed us that weakness is not just a state of mind, but a choice to hide behind excuses, to mask resentment as virtue, and to conform to a morality created by the weak to punish the strong. But if there's one thing we've learned throughout this video, it's that strength is not about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. Instead of running from pain, the strong turn it into learning. Instead of drowning in resentment, they use that energy to create. Instead of seeking external validation, they become self-sufficient. Man is something that must be overcome. Nietzsche didn't want us to be just another part of the herd. He wanted us to become creators of meaning, to break free from the chains of mediocrity, and to take full responsibility for our own lives. Now, the question is, what will you do with this? You can simply move on and forget these words, go back to your routine and keep blaming the world for everything that goes wrong. Or you can act. You can see the truth, abandon illusions, and become truly strong. And this is Nietzsche's final provocation. Be strong or be nothing. If you've made it this far, congratulations. This wasn't just another video. It wasn't meant for those seeking comfort, but for those seeking transformation. And I know this journey isn't easy. The path to strength requires courage, sacrifice, and facing truths that few are willing to accept. But in the end, it's the only way to live authentically. If this video resonated with you, don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And if you want to keep exploring deep ideas like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the next topic might change the way you see the world even more. Now, before you go, tell me in the comments, which part of this video made you reflect the most? I'm curious to know. And before you leave, there are 2 videos on the screen right now, and trust me, you can't leave without watching them. The first video dives even deeper into Nietzsche's ideas and how they can transform the way you see life. If this video made you question your strength, the next one will show you how to apply it in practice. The second video explores another thinker who can help you break free from the mental chains that hold you back. If you want to go further and master your own mind, this is the path. Pick one and continue this journey. See you there.